Hello, I'm Doug Rogers. It's November 30th.
This is Russell Rogers. We're the Rogers team from Keller Williams Southlake. And Doug, it looks like Christmas came early for Texan homeowners.
Yep, the bill passed on early November, Senate Bill 2 and Prop 4. It's now official and you can start counting the money. Now, what that means in the long run is your property taxes are going down. And a couple of things you need to look for in your escrow account and your property tax exemptions have all been increased, and there's some fun stuff to look at. But let me give you a big picture of how it's changed, just numbers wise. My home probably would sell for about $500,000. Last year I paid $7,600 with all the deductions I could possibly have last year. I turned 65 recently, so I have another deduction. So this year, with the new homestead rules, the new compression of the rates and the school districts, my new expense for a $500,000 home being 65 is $5,369. So I saved $2,237 just because the government said it was time to lower the taxes. So how about you? Do you see yours go down?
Yeah, so the great thing, it's not just the homestead exemption increasing, which is obviously beneficial, but has some limits to it. The tax rate compression is really a big part, and something that shocked me because we pay our taxes, it goes out of the escrow account. You don't look at it from year to year, although as realtors are always looking at it for clients, but it didn't really click to me until I was prepping for the show, and I noticed from 2019 the full burden tax rate for me on property taxes for my house was 2.75. And so I've always thought, the east side of Alliance, I always just kind of call it 2.7. When I'm looking at rental properties or whatever, if I'm doing a quick calculation for myself, I just call it 2.7. Well, for 2023, the new tax rate is going to be 2.26. So basically a full 50 basis points lower, which is a dramatic decrease. And that accounts to about 1,200. So to your point, I'm saving about 1,200 on the homestead, which is basically what they've kind of calculated as the average for Texas, which I guess I'm average. But another 1,200 just from the compression. So I'm going to save $2,400 in taxes next year. So there's basically a trip to Cancun.
Yep. And it happens because, tax rates are different everywhere. And it's funny, I used to have the same thing. If I was in Flower Mound for years, I'd say 2.2. That's all you need to know, 2.2. If you were in Colleyville, it was going to be 2.65, 2.7. Over in Capel, 2.8. But this is several years ago. Things creep down a little bit. Some of the governments over here are run really efficiently. And when they have too much money, they actually do lower the rate. So in Colleyville right now where I live, it's landlocked and they can't build more schools. Where Russell lives, they have to build more schools and more infrastructure. And there's more building going on there. But here it's 1.95. So down from 2.65 several years ago down to 1.95. And then with the additional deductions, it truly is Christmas in November for your property taxes. But just a couple of reminders on that. Make sure if you're getting all your deductions, because the old rule used to be that you had to live there past January 1st before you could apply for the deduction. That rule changed. The day you move into the house, you can apply for the deduction, and the deductions count for the entire year. When you turn 65, it counts for the whole year. If you turn 65 on December 31st, you actually get the deduction for the entire year. So make sure you apply and get the full deduction. You don't want to put it off and miss a year, because the race really starts, especially for seniors. If you apply 2 or 3 years late, there is a frozen aspect to values on some of on the school district, especially the rate going up. And it has a limit on, if you're not a senior, it can go up 10% a year. But if you don't file it in time, that 10% doesn't count until next year.
So along with those two, let's also not forget the disabled veteran one as well. So there's different levels to that. And if you know your disability paperwork, you'll know what percentage you kind of fall into and what bucket, but that's another big one too. So make sure you get all those exemptions, to Doug's point, and they're going to be on that, for Tarrant County, that blue paper listed there. And in my experience, it's been pretty easy to get deductions added with your new. Have you done yours yet?
Oh yeah, I walked into the location in Fort Worth. You can actually pull it online and mail it in. But I was helping a friend lower their property taxes. They were appealing to the board, and it was a senior, and I wanted to help him walk through the process because I've done it countless times. And while I was in there, I asked the question. I'm turning 65. When do I do my paperwork? She says, you can do it right now. I'll do it for you, just as long as you show me your driver's license that proves that you're turning 65. And whenever you turn 65, the rate will kick in. And I actually, to double check for our conversation today, I went to the tax office and said, would you print me out the most recent tax bill for my property? And she said, oh, here it is. You've got this deduction. You've got that deduction. You're all good to go. So it's already there. So the second you turn, make sure you file.
Yeah, and they do make it easy. And I always did the mail-in one, but when I was doing my disability one, I called in because I was pretty confused. It was the first time I'd bought a house, trying to figure it all out. And the lady talked to me for like 10 minutes, helped me figure it out, basically helped me fill out the thing, and I sent it in the next day. But moving on from that, I believe you had some interesting stuff on some comparisons for us.
Well, I just got back from California. I try to go to place little golf in California every fall, and so I always shop around, look at the real estate, and compare things. And you hear these stories all the time about California moving here left and right. Well, yeah, they are. We all know that. And they say, well, the taxes. What about the taxes? Your property taxes are so high. I said, well, wait a minute. Let's do the homework with the new rates and compare rates there, rates here, and the state income tax there. And so we actually have the real number. So what I did was I went into a city in California called Livermore. It's right outside of San Jose. Its average sales price is $1 million. And then I compared it to Colleyville, where I live, where the average sales price is $1 million. So I got 3 houses for sale there for $1 million a piece, and I got 3 $1 million homes for sale here. Both of these are currently on the market, so we could look up their current taxes and their sizes, their ages, and ask a few questions. So the real bottom line here is the tax rate in California for those $1 million homes, on average, we're working out to $9,700, $9,000, and $15,000 on one that was 1.1. So let's just say the average right at $10,000 per house. And then when you take the same houses in Colleyville, 12,000, 16, and 16,000. So we are higher by, let's just say $5,000 or $6,000 a house. And I said, wow, that's a lot of money. Russell, does that sound like a lot of money to you? $5,000 more?
Yeah, it does, but that's not the whole story, right?
Well, the rest of the story is how much do Californians pay in income tax? And so if you want to go validate this, you can go to caltex.com. It's a website that has all the tax rates and all the deductions and all the exemptions for the state income tax. So if you get the standard exemption, and if you have one child, I did this for married with one child, standard exemption, it works out to you're paying an additional $23,000 a year in personal income tax to the state of California. So our house being $5,000 or $6,000 more a year, you subtract from the $23,000. So not necessarily that a number, but you're spending $18,000 more in taxes living in California.
Yeah, and then that doesn't even include what the house looks like, right?
Well, you didn't ask about the house, what the house looked like. So I have the $64 question answered already. The 3 houses in Livermore, one of them was 1,400 square feet, built in 1971. It was a nice remodeled little cottage. The next one was 1,200 square feet, built in 1986. Nice house, 1-car garage. And then the bigger house was 2,000 square feet. It was built in 1999. Pretty decent house, but it probably wouldn't sell for that in our location. Now, the 3 houses in Colleyville, all 3 houses were 4,000 square feet or larger. All 3 houses had a swimming pool. All 3 houses were on a 1/3 acre, half-acre lot. All 3 houses had 4-car garages. 4 bedrooms and 3-car garages. So you're getting a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 3-car garage with a swimming pool in a neighborhood that goes to one of the best school districts in the state of Texas. So $1.1 million here, $1 million there. You're getting a little better house, but you have to pay more taxes if you live in California.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did the math on this because I've had discussions, heated ones even, with some Air Force buddies or otherwise that are from different states that have now moved here, and they always bring this up, right? Like they're trying to like back their state, like, oh yeah, we may have an income tax, but our property taxes are lower, so it's actually cheaper. And it's like, well, no, it's not. When you do the math, especially now with these lower tax rates, I mean, at 2.2% for like my house, whenever I do that math and I look at it, let's call it 9,000. That's less than I would pay at like 5% income tax in another state, which 5% would be low. That Arizona, Pennsylvania, Ohio, whatever. So if it's higher, like 7% or 10%, it's going to be more. So what's the benefit there? Now, obviously, if you live in California for different reasons, lifestyle choice kind of stuff, that's one thing. But to say that we pay more in taxes when you're looking at income and property taxes is no longer legitimate, if it ever was. And we've proved it in the math just then, and it doesn't even take into account the house and how well conditioned it is. And you're getting way more here. And like we talked about before we started, I have clients that have moved from California and they love it here. It may be a little hot sometimes in the summer, but a lot of people, when I talk to them about that, they'll just say, yeah, I knew it was going to be hot. It's Texas. And they just don't do events in the heat of the day, and they live their life a little differently during the heat of the day, and they change things, and they love it here as a comparison. And they're paying almost $20,000 less in taxes.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories was selling a young couple with 2 kids from California. She was driving an hour and a half one way, living in a condo type house or condo community. And they had about 1,400 square feet. They moved here. Now, this is going back about 14 years, but they bought a 2-story house on a nice sized lot in a community with a swimming pool and tennis courts, and they were 15 minutes away from work. And they bought a house that was about 2,400 square feet, and the house was probably at the time about 10 years old. So she said, the quality of time I'm spending with my family is what's different. I'm driving 15 minutes to work because they live in the Alliance Corridor, and the business where she worked was in the Alliance Corridor. And she could drive 15 minutes to work. She could come home for lunch. She could go to events at school. She could take her kids to school and pick them up when she had to. So it's not just the saving the money on the taxes and getting a bigger house. It might be the fact that you now drive 30 minutes to work, 45 minutes to work. In the Metroplex, an hour drive to work is really long. Most people don't drive an hour to work. Most people are in that 30 to 40 minute range.
So all in all, the full lifestyle can be or is better here than in other states, even California with their kind of perfect weather sometimes.
Yeah, I still like California. I'm still going to play golf in California, so you can count on me to come back to drink wine and play golf, but I'm probably not going to have to move there.
Well, and if you can build a similar lifestyle here with all the parks like we talked about, different things, amenities that we'll continue to go over, but you're not going to the beach every day for most people. If you have this hour commute both ways or more, you're eating up a lot of the time. You're not enjoying what would be like the best parts of California. So why not live here and then take those vacations to California? You're flying out of DFW or Love Field. You're getting there very quickly and very cheaply. And then you can still visit all those great things, but live in a better place and have a better lifestyle the other 95% of the year.
All right. So what we've learned today is it's costs less to live in Texas, and everything's bigger in Texas. All right, well, just a quick update on the listing inventory. It's starting to get a little smaller. Grapevine, Colleyville, Keller, Southlake has 15 fewer listings as a total inventory this week. They added 19 and 14 went under contract in the last week. In the Alliance Corridor, that's where it's actually becoming a little more stale as well. They added 21 listings, 21 went under contract, but we still have the exact same number of listings as we've had the 2 weeks before. Flower Mound is really, really flat as well. They've added 13 listings in the last week, 13 went under contract, but there's still 205 listings in that marketplace, which is down 4 from a couple of weeks ago. And then the Frisco Plano market, our biggest market, they're actually shrinking faster than the rest. They reduced 25 units down to 639, adding 43, and then having another 47 go under contract this past week. So things are kind of quiet, but still moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And we'll see the following weeks, too, because with Thanksgiving, this is going to really skew the numbers. But we did want to give the update this week just in case. So.
That's correct.
But thanks for joining, everybody. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to like and subscribe.